So we'll start with some meditation. So find a comfortable position. And allow the body to settle. Noticing any areas where there is some tension and giving it a little kind attention. Because my most used meditation object for myself is the breath, I'll often put my attention with the breathing on the place that needs the extra loving kindness in my body. So if it's my hip or my knee or some other place, I have this image of breathing into that area. Because the breath really carries or leads, you might say, the energy in the body. At least that's how I experience it. In and out breathing refers to this word, it uses this word pana in Pali, which is prana in Sanskrit. And it's the breath energy. So the energy in the body, which can also be used for healing, can be directed by the breath or the mind imagining the breath going through the body. Breathing into the low back means that attention is put on the low back as we're breathing in and out. Noticing the sensations there, for example. And breathing into the right shoulder is feeling how the shoulder feels. You might even have a sense of that energy coming into the shoulder. So some practitioners create a sequence of areas of the body where they would like to bring their attention, and they use it as a process, of a self-guided meditation. And you can form that in any way that you want to. And of course, the idea is that the body relaxes, becomes more comfortable, becomes tranquil. Even during walking meditation, if there's some discomfort in one of your joints, you can do the same thing, breathing into that area. And notice the results. So when we meditate, we want to be attentive to the results of our actions. Knowing that we want to incline towards being relaxed and calm and present, aware. And ideally, our attention on our breathing or whatever other object we use, these areas in the body, for example, also helps the mind to become calm. And that it lets go of the other things that it might be concerned about or thinking about or impacted by through the senses. And then it can become contented, satisfied. Enjoying meditation. Of course, we don't always experience the ideal. So, as with the body, we may need to put attention on the mind in a way that helps it to become calm and satisfied. Sometimes what's needed is to really investigate what the mind is concerned about. Sometimes it's enough to use a mantra or a meditation reflection that just leads the mind to a place of calm and stillness. When we listen to our mind, give it a chance to express what it's troubled by. And we can gain understanding. And it can be an opportunity to create the reflection that's actually going to free the mind. Whether it's about impermanence or suffering, not self, or working with a specific emotional charge. But the important influence besides our mindfulness is the wisdom of the Dhamma. Our mind can be distracted or attracted to many kinds of things that really don't matter very much in the big picture. Sometimes what's required or what's beneficial is to really turn the mind away from its habit tendencies, maybe towards aversion or towards delusion or towards desire, and purposely lead it away from that cycle. Maybe through the use of loving kindness or appreciative joy or compassion. Sometimes it's so beneficial to really reflect on the inevitability of death. Bringing our mind directly in touch with reality, with truth. So, in these next few minutes, just give yourself a little time to reflect on what theme, what approach, if it's not already clear to you, to use today or tonight when you meditate? What does your body and mind, your system need right now? I'll draw the meditation to a close, and I thought I'd share some reflections on how to work with the mind, particularly when it's being uncooperative. And I've been reflecting on thinking about how much I recognize my mind to be like a child, you know, the thinking mind, um, the mind that's formed of all these different kinds of conditions, this conditioning we have, and how the sort of grown up aspect of the mind, or the wisdom, the observer part, can guide the mind. You know, like you would train a child, or raise them. There was a time after my children were grown, and I was really interested in developing my communication skills. And you know, sometimes when you have an interest and an intention like that, causes and conditions seem to line up to give you an opportunity. And what happened for me is that I was living with someone who was a parent effectiveness training teacher. So it's all about communication. And living with this person meant that on a daily basis, I was learning and practicing parent effectiveness training, because it's not just about parents and children, it's communication in any context, really. There's management effectiveness training and teacher effectiveness training, and it really works regardless of the situation. And parent effectiveness training was developed by Thomas Gordon. He started teaching it in, I think, 1962. And it came into the public awareness maybe 10 years before nonviolent communication, but it's very similar. And when I think about it now, and I think about how this relates to our mind and our training ourselves to meditate, training ourselves to reflect on Dhamma, I really see a lot of similarities. So with parent effectiveness training, one of the first things you learn is how to identify who has the problem. So, you know, the idea being that when we're upset about something, the person who's upset is the person who has the problem, who owns the problem. And that was a little hard for me to accept in the beginning, because it seems like if someone has been mean to you or harsh, or has said something that you feel hurt by, that they're the one with the problem. But actually, the way this works is to recognize that it's the person who's upset that has the problem. And the reason this is valuable is because the role that we take in the situation and how we approach it depends on who has the problem. When someone's having a problem, the thing that we need to do is listen to them. And listen to them and repeat back what we're hearing, so that they know that we understand, and they have a chance to let us know whether or not we've gotten it right. And if we have the problem, then our role is to express what we're experiencing from what were called I statements or I messages. Talking about how we feel, not about what we think of the other person or what we think of what they're doing. So how does this relate to my mind? So if the mind is, constantly distracted, running off, monkey mind, all over the place, restless, there's a problem. It can just be habit energy. There can be a lot of reasons for it. Or if, there's, you sit down to meditate and you're always falling asleep, there's a problem. Any of the hindrances really that are kind of persistent. The mind is uncooperative with this idea of becoming settled and clear and focused. So I think about it in the context of that training and that parent effectiveness training, and I think, okay, this is time to listen to the mind. And I also see this echoed in things that I've read in Stillness Flowing about Ajahn Chah and the way he would have an inner dialogue about things with his mind, and Ajahn Sumedho talking about the way he would listen to his mind when he was angry or when he was critical or whatever was happening, just really being present with the mind, listening to what it's saying and even repeating it back, like there these dialogues that are recorded about Ajahn Chah, I remember one where he had a couple of young, I think they were probably pretty young men or boys, traveling with him on Tudong, and then he dismissed them. And then shortly after, he was wishing for someone to be with him again. And he's having this conversation with his mind, hey, you just told them to go away and now you want this again? And, just kind of like really being engaged and listening. And Ajahn Sumedho talking about the mind, complaining, being upset about something, and really listening to it, really repeating back to it what you're hearing, and then that adult part of the mind, you might say, the wisdom. It's infusing the Dhamma in this. We have to be, anyway, I find it valuable to look at it in this way. And when we listen, and of course, many of you might see the relationship between this idea and a number of therapeutic approaches that are used, like internal family systems, for example. And so when I think about this with regard to the parent-child relationship, one of the things that comes up, by the way, because I was living with this person for 4 or 5 years, I also started assisting with the parent effectiveness training classes. And what one would see is that when parents would come to these classes, it was because they wanted their children to do what they wanted them to do. Like, how do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? That's where it would start. But then as they'd learn, not just this idea of who has the problem and listening and all of that, but there was also this idea of no loser conflict resolution. How do you, with your child, work through something and nobody loses? It takes some creative solutions sometimes. And in this relationship that I was in with my roommate, we came up with some pretty creative solutions around things so that nobody loses. And one of the things that sometimes we do with our mind when we want it to cooperate is that we become really harsh with it. And of course, parents do the same thing. Sometimes what you would see is that parents go from being, with punitive discipline on one hand, or very authoritarian, to being very permissive, the two kind of opposites. One parent said that they're very permissive, they let the kids do whatever they want until they can't stand the kids, and then they would be very authoritarian and strongly disciplinary until they couldn't stand themselves, and then they go back to being permissive. And in a sense, when I think about it, those two feel a little like the two extremes the Buddha said that we should avoid, really indulging in sensual pleasure and being as comfortable as we possibly can be. And on the other side, being very austere and strict with ourselves. And that maybe there's something in the middle way, even when we are working with our mind, wanting it to sit down and be quiet and meditate, or relax, or investigate. And of course, you might have heard me say many times that the middle way isn't really in the middle between these two extremes. It's something else. It's a whole lifestyle. It's a whole approach to deeper understanding. And so I'm suggesting here that this kind of interactions with our own mind also needs to be something other than, well, just let the mind do whatever it wants, which is one approach to meditation. Or I'm going to really have it in this strict regimen. So what's interesting is you could do either of those two things in a way that's actually productive, but we want to observe, well, what does this mind respond to? What does it need? And if we have a chronic kind of experience of a certain hindrance being really strong, I really think that it's time to really listen to the mind. Really be present with it and try to understand more deeply what's going on. So, for example, one of the things that can be happening when we are falling asleep all the time in meditation is that we're not happy. In our life. And we can give ourselves a chance, the mind the chance, or the heart a chance to express that, to really try to understand it. It was something that came up in the parent effectiveness training. This child didn't want to go to school. Well, of course, the parent is forcing this child to go to school, and there's crying every day. And when they started using the parent effectiveness, they started to listen, and really you have to, create a safe enough space for this little girl to talk about why she didn't want to go to school. And there was actually, the mother had taped this. This was a long time ago. It was tapes. And she taped this conversation. And it was so precious. It was, like the mother repeating back what she's hearing and really, paying attention to her daughter. And this little girl, finally she says, I don't want to go to school because then I don't have enough time with you. And so, of course, then the mother had the opportunity to, intentionally make time to be with her daughter after school. Like we can work this out, And what does our mind need if it's constantly restless or if it's constantly drowsy? To really be able to let it, give it the space, give yourself the time to look. Instead of, what we often hear is, I can't meditate. I've heard that so many times. I can't meditate because my mind is all over the place. And the first thing to recognize is that's just the nature of the mind. It's that's not a personal problem, really. Giving it the right encouragement, see how it is, over time, etc. Maybe a different meditation object, or some of the different approaches. But instead of giving up or cracking down or losing enthusiasm and interest, just trying to look a little bit deeper into what might be sort of really going on and how we can bring the wisdom of the Dhamma to that. And, maybe dialogue with your childlike part of the mind isn't something you're used to doing, but you could give it a try. And this also might relate to a kind of practice where, like we want to encourage with investigation, where you ask a question and then you wait for your intuition to answer it. I've used techniques like journaling, or you write the question down with the right hand and you let the left hand write the answer. Just let it come up with whatever it comes up with. Those kinds of things. You might need to play a little bit to really understand what's going on inside. What's inhibiting our peace and calm? What's interrupting our joy and happiness? Might be something we didn't realize was going on. And one thing that I notice is when I think about the mind this way, what comes up is compassion. Like I said, instead of being kind of self-judging and maybe harsh with ourselves or punitive, to have some compassion for this mind that has so much to deal with, being human. I really appreciated Thomas Gordon, the person who developed the parent effectiveness training. I had a chance to spend a little time with him before he passed away in 2002. And And then I also was present at his memorial. And I never saw anyone so highly praised for the life he led. It was really beautiful. Just based on that idea of helping people understand each other and resolve our differences and be able to meet each other in a mutually respectful way, regardless of our position in life. Parents and children, managers and employees, whatever that relationship might be. And so I would just want to put it out there that maybe some of these techniques, approaches can help us have a better relationship with our mind, maybe a better relationship with our body too. Encouraging ourselves towards that understanding of Dhamma that is so freeing. Bringing complete relief from suffering. Any thoughts on this matter or questions? Yeah, Marilyn?
I just looked up parent effectiveness training in the library to see if I could get a copy of it. And there's one copy available, but it's in Chinese.
Learning Chinese seems like kind of a high bar.
Well, it says something about the Chinese population in Vancouver. Yes. Anyway, that was very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, they're still going around the world, I think. I think you can still find the trainings. Yeah. I hope that you kind of get the idea that use whatever you need to use that's wholesome to help yourself be calm, be happy, be relaxed, and let go of all of it. But it's not like we can just command the mind to let go. It just doesn't really work usually. So finding methods that help us with that. It's quite the journey, exploration. Ling?
Thank you so much, Ayya, for this talk. I actually was just reading Stillness Flow this past 10 days. I read exactly the passage you just mentioned. And I use that technique, like I even wrote in my journal, ask this question yourself and try to find the answer. I was not very successful. But, when I woke up in the morning, it has been many years, I just had this feeling like I'm so anxious. So when that feeling comes up, I use that same method, why you are feeling so anxious, okay? I'm grasping and, but why you are grasping, and then kind of this back and forth answer, I'm afraid of this person, but why you afraid? And, I give my answer, okay, I would afraid this happening. okay, you cannot control, but okay, if it's happened, what would be the result? Okay, not too bad, this result. And then, okay, in the outcome, it would be not as worse, could be better result. So this kind of back and forth for a little while. And then my mind is kind of calm and I start meditate, but just out of blue, then this fear is coming. But what if, and then I couldn't carry on with the questions. So I did also have that in a conclusion, like, this mind is just thinking that way is a negative. It's not good for me. Stop it. And that was kind of stuck. I keep repeating this kind of thing. Different. So I feel my question is this right way practice like that? Or I should, because I haven't done this long, just past 10 days, maybe I should carry on, or I will have better way to question myself, getting maybe better answer if I keep asking myself. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a skill we develop, I think. And there's another concept in parent effectiveness training called shifting gears. And my recollection, it's been a long time now, but my recollection is it's kind of like I said, when you identify that this person who's upset, they're the ones who own the problem, and you listen to them. But then as we're listening and we're like maybe hearing this person's upset with us, and then things start coming up inside of us, then we have to switch gears to taking care of that. And so like when we're working with the mind, like the way you're describing, I think we need to develop the sensitivity to when is my mind just, it's coming back to this fear over and over again, or it's coming back to these thoughts, these certain thoughts, and then to recognize, okay, I maybe right now the best thing isn't it's listening to the mind, but it's also really bringing in the Dhamma, really bringing in the wisdom. Like sometimes, if I feel afraid of something and I'm present with that fear, sometimes it's enough to be present with it for it to calm down. But sometimes it's like you say, you're asking these questions like, what's the worst that could happen? Sometimes my whole system needs to be kind of reminded that, well, this body's going to die. This is the truth. The reality is not everyone is going to approve of you. Not everyone is going to like you. And by the way, you're not going to like everyone. A recent theme that's been going through my mind is the judging mind is really engaged all the time. Even when it's not, I'm starting to suspect that, because we live in this world of duality, the mind is always processing which thing is better, what do I like, what do I not like, like there's always these kinds of dualistic thoughts running kind of automatically. And even if someone in my life doesn't say anything, they're probably judging me anyway. Saying, whether they think I'm doing a good job or not, or whatever. And then, so what? So what? You can look at anything like this. Like I remember talking with Ajahn Panyawado a long time ago about feeling guilty about something. And he's like, so if I'm guilty, I'm guilty. So what? Is the way his approach, so what if I'm guilty? I did that. So what? I'm not going to do that anymore, kind of thing. And, you know, just you're going to have to look at what helps the mind immerse in the Dhamma, and what helps the mind take in the Dhamma to like let go. And so it is a creative process in my experience. And the main thing is don't give up. Don't ever think, well, this is how I am. Because you're a collection of processes that keep changing. Different inputs will change what's going on in there. And, you know, really continually bringing the Dhamma in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Lee. I wish I had a pat answer, but it's just how it is in my experience.
Yeah, this is exactly what I need to hear. But this is really encouraging. Thank you. Thank you.
I think sometimes the encouragement is just that we're all in the same boat. You know, we have these thinking minds, we have these bodies, they're constantly in some state of health or illness, you know, kind of like difficulties and whatever, and it's okay. We've got what we need to wake up, really.
Thank you, Ayya.
Yeah, thank you, Ling. Me too. So grateful. Anne?
Yes, hello. I'm very grateful for the modern psychology and the Dharma, and I'm saying modern psychology, PT. There's so much there. I'd like you to say a little more about duality in the context of which you just spoke.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
yeah, sure. Thank you, Anne. So this world, meaning samsara, so any realm, heavens, hells, whatever, this is the one we're operating in, the human realm. It's always got these two sides, you know, the dark, the light, the however you want to talk about it, think about it. Good, bad. It's these pairs. It's like when Ajahn Sumedho talks about, you know, you're never going to have peace. Just the world is never going to be totally at peace because it's peaceful. And then there's war. They come together as a pair, and everything in this world is like that. It's dual. And so our minds are conditioned to have, you know, those two sides operating all the time. Is this safe or is it dangerous? Is it, you know, is it good or is it bad? But Nibbana doesn't have that. You know, I like this phrase from Ajahn Chai, you know, Nibbana is above bad and beyond good, something like that, I think is how it goes. And it's not, and even the philosophy, like we were talking about last night, you know, eternalism and nihilism. There's always these opposites, these two things, you know, and it's neither of those. Even that idea of, you know, indulging in sensual pleasures or living in austerities, you know, there's always these two sides, and the real answer is it's neither of those, you know, and it's not something in the middle either. So it's like we can always have this, you know, like what's higher, what's lower, what's better, what's worse. And of course, we need that. We need to know what's wholesome and what's unwholesome. We need to know, how to make good karma rather than bad karma. But awakening takes us beyond karma, the karma that ends all karma, right?
And we can have moments of nirvana. Yes, I mean it's not the real nirvana, but there are moments when we transcend that duality.
Right. Yeah. Or, like the stream entering experience, you really have that experience of what is beyond that. Even in meditation, this idea of, being the witness, really residing in that. It's cool, it's contented, it's calm, peaceful, uplifting, healing. And then we realize that that's our true home, as Ajahn Chah would say. Who we really are, as Ajahn Sumedho would say.
Yeah, thank you. And what was the title of the book that Ling was referring to? Is it that big Ajahn Chah book, or is it
Yeah, it's the big Ajahn Chah book, Stillness Flowing by Ajahn Jayasara. It's beautifully written. And it's a little intimidating when you look at it, but it's actually, when I finished it the first time, I really wished it wasn't over. But I have to admit that I got kind of bogged down in the middle, in the Vinaya part. And, I'm a bhikkhuni. That should be like no big deal. It's like, oh boy. But then when I picked it up again, and it was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what are the obstacles that you notice in meditation? And sometimes an obstacle can be, I've been meditating for decades. I shouldn't have any problems. It's just, yeah. It's not how it works, folks. Yeah.
Restlessness.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a rhetorical question, but restlessness and sleepiness is biologically real for me. So I have to not anticipate that it's harder for me in the evenings. And so, last evening, normally I can't really do 45 minutes in the evening, but last evening I was just able to really stay with the awareness. So it's about being disciplined and make a decision that my object is going to last me. And I did some walking meditation in the middle, so in the same room. So it's been creative.
Yeah.
With some of the obstacles for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And getting to know ourselves, like when I have complete freedom of schedule, I really can tune into when my body and mind are really ready to meditate and what kinds of things I do that helps it be ready to meditate. And if I'm actually really tired, it just doesn't go well. I'm better off resting and then coming back. But we have to learn, about our own body and mind. We all have different conditioning. So yes, I think it's really, in a way, delightful and interesting to see meditation as a creative process. And having that compassion and encouraging the mind. And restlessness is, this is such a restless form that we happen to be in. it needs something all the time, it's like, or things it doesn't like and things it likes, and like, yes, it takes some discipline applied in the right way. Again, I go back to parenting. I remember a time when someone said to me, that family, they've got it right with their kids. Those kids, they listen, they do they've got it right. 10 years later, those kids were really rebelling and all hell was breaking loose. And it's like, we can force ourselves to a point, but is it really working? Is it going to work over time? You can see the same thing with authoritarian governments. I mean, these principles, these ideas of how to interact with each other and how to work in ourselves and externally, the themes repeat at all levels. And you look at the way the Buddha taught and the way he worked with a monastic sangha, is really, really skillful, very beautiful. He when someone would complain about somebody's behavior in the sangha, he would ask that person to come and he would say, is this what's happening? And he would hear their side, talk about it. Look at what's going to be supportive of people being able to live in harmony. And yeah, it's really beautiful. James?
Thanks for the talk, Ayya. Kind of a little share and a bit of a question, perhaps. You were saying earlier about Ajahn Sumedho, like sort of being that observer. I just thought I'd share that when I was on retreat with Ajahn Asoko last year, who of course is his attendant, he related how in the morning, Ajahn Sumedho would be like getting up to date with some of the news, and obviously he's perhaps a little perturbed right now with what's going on in his homeland. And Ajahn Asoko said that he would sort of read the news, and then he'd sort of sit and watch his mind kind of chattering about it,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. That well, it speaks of that kind of observer position. Obviously, he just sits, and it's like, yeah, I suppose it's like what you're saying about the mind as a child, how this little childish mind is just chattering away about it. But also I like that it's kind of reassuring that someone as well practiced as him still has that mind chattering away. And I think I always thought that the ideal point you get with meditation is when everything is sort of still and there's nothing going on. But if even someone as advanced as him still has that chattering mind, then I'm not doing so bad, really.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like reading the suttas, like the Buddha is not saying that the Buddha doesn't have these thoughts come in or these feelings arise. It's just that the wisdom kind of makes it possible to let it go quite quickly, So yeah, it's not about some kind of perfection in terms of not gonna have these things coming through. They'll come through like the weather, but we don't have to grasp them.
There's no real
What?
There's no real stopping it, really, is it?
There's no real stopping it. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose while there's still stuff in there, it's probably a good idea if you don't, really. Yeah. So perhaps if you're sitting and there is no chattering, then maybe you're actually doing something wrong, because I mean,
just enjoy it a lot less.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I think I've found though that it does seem like there's lots of layers So when I first sit, I'll just be like listening to sounds of the body or the breath or whatever, and there's a very coarse kind of like real childish chattering, lots of noises, but that will slowly fade out, and then there's sort of perhaps something a little bit underneath that that's not quite so obvious, and perhaps that will fade out, and then it feels like you kind of get to a layer in which it becomes kind of harder to really clearly see what's going on, And I think you taught me long ago that if you can't quite get a handle on what it is, you sort of assign it a color or appearance or something like that. But I suppose I've probably asked questions like this before, but I suppose it still is like you said about practicing to understand what's going on inside, but understanding it's more like knowing it completely, I guess. Not understanding as in, I don't know, that's anger. Well, I don't know. It's
Yeah, but I think I hear it. It's not like we have to have an intellectual kind of description of it or a label for it, but knowing it directly, actually beyond the labels, beyond the descriptions, just how can I be fully present with this experience?
So knowing it from all angles and how it feels, the experience and everything of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, allowing it to be truly seen, truly felt. It's like the child, when you really see them and they know that they're being seen because you're reflecting it back to them with love.
I suppose then it's like for me, I guess what disrupts the mind most is definitely aversion. Things arising from that. Maybe a bit of greediness, but I don't think that's terrible. But I suppose it's a question sometimes of just sort of what to do with it, because some of it's. I suppose it's. I was going to say, yeah, I was going to say, well, it's caused by the conditions of life that create the aversion, but that's kind of not the point, is it? Because there will always be conditions of life that will create aversion.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're fixing, for want of a better word, it's not like I'm going to meditate and then come up with solutions for all the problems of my life and the universe, but I can fix what I do with the understanding that arises, that it just becomes knowledge of phenomena, maybe.
Yeah.
And no more than that, and that takes its power away. I feel like I'm just rambling now.
No, it's good. It's like it's true. It's knowledge that it is phenomena. That it's this constantly changing material that has no core, has no basis. I said this to somebody the other day. Like the palm tree doesn't have a core, and all of these things. Yeah, we're not going to be able to solve all the problems or ever, but to really see that part that's afraid or averse. I mean, sure, there's plenty of stuff to have aversion over. The material is constant. And greed too, desire too. And, it's like what we want to cut through is the delusion that this is something we need to take so personally.
That it's self, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah.
That it's self, me or mine.
It's just a phenomenon like doorknobs and cats. It's just something else that exists in the world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Something we don't have control over.
So I was I was wondering also, you say about listening with neither permissiveness or being a disciplinarian, like, and that's something I wonder about sometimes, because there tends to be like a thing about whatever arises, just observe. And yet right effort is to bring the unwholesome qualities to an end, and unwholesome qualities to grow and expand. So if you're sitting in meditation and you're getting sort of all these sort of angry thoughts coming up, it kind of feels sometimes like if you're just sitting and just observing them, then you could be like allowing them to stay and grow. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like these things can arise, and sometimes if I stay with them, they will just change and then sort of fade and clear off again. But there's perhaps other times when they're perhaps a bit more sticky, and if I do let them sort of stay and focus on them, then it's just going to make things worse. So is this one of those, there's no right answer, you just have to have the wisdom to know, like, that one's not too bad, so let that one go, but this one's a bit harder, so maybe we should just stuff that back in the box for later, maybe?
Maybe, but we don't want to stuff it in the box inevitably or indefinitely, because suppression doesn't work.
Yeah, that was.
But you know that. But what you're saying is true. It's like this is why it's important to look at the results. Like, where is this going? I used to have this because, when I was upset about things, I wanted to talk to someone, a friend, whatever. And I learned that depending on who you talk to and where I'm at and who I would talk to, sometimes talking with them would help to clear things and relieve things and calm things down. And at other times it was like, the talking with them kind of revs it up and it just like creates more. This is the same thing with our mind. And if we're aware that that's happening, then we have to change our direction, right? We do, like we can observe this, and applying the right medicine, applying the right amount of medicine, it's not so different from, what you need to do for the body. Yeah. That's why there's no, like definitive answer.
I want it to be more straightforward than that, like either this way or that way, but yeah, it's a lot more. The more you get into it, the more nuanced it is, basically, isn't it? And the more you have to do or not do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, James, for the reflections. Is there anything in the chat that we should read?
There's good stuff in the chat.
There's good stuff in the chat.
Yeah. This was earlier about the parent effectiveness training. And he liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
That's good.
Practicing the attitude, the restlessness isn't a problem, but aversion to the restlessness, wanting it to end, is what I should be aware of. Finding that I'm averse to aversion, trying to be aware of that over and over. Yeah. Yeah, aversion, there are so many things we don't want. And pushing them away doesn't work. And wallowing in them doesn't work. But listening to them and reflecting back that we've experienced it, heard it. This helps. Suzanne.
Thank you for this talk. It reminded me that like 50 years ago, I had my first job as a school teacher, and I read teaching effectiveness training.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't remember listening in the book. I remember speaking, like what to say.
Okay.
And I can remember just like lasering like one sentence, and the students would just, do that. It was really amazing. But then while you were talking, I had this other wish. I don't know if you remember, but when you told us years ago about a Buddhist dream, I said, oh gosh, I wish you would write a book about Buddhist dreams. And now and now I want you to write a book called Buddhist Effectiveness Training.
Okay, we'll all give you comments about it when you do it.
No, I would help you write the book. I would type in what you're saying, but I wonder, so I get what you're saying too about the listening. That's so important. And is there any particular, like in your book that you're going to write, is there like something that Buddhist practitioners could say?
To ourselves,
yes, to ourselves, so that it would be like a perk up, like, wow.
Well, what comes to my mind, I'm going to get some feedback about this, I know. I love you. Love is your true home. You can let go of everything, and that love will still be there.
That's so nice. Thank you.
Anybody here have anything you want to say or ask or complain about? It's a pretty quiet crowd today. There aren't real people here. I just want you to know. Alex?
Hello, thank you so much, Ayya, for the talk. I was procrastinating talking, but since we've got a few minutes, I figured I might share. This effectiveness training really reminds me of insight dialogue and that interpersonal meditation. And I just started practicing again with some friends. And then pretty immediately after, had a couple of big confrontations with a person who I cared deeply for, that you know about, and been kind of working through communications specifically with this person. And just in the 48 hours have kind of decided that this person has dedicated themselves to misunderstanding me. And I've now, after all this time, cut communications with this person indefinitely. And the conversations come up during my meditation. And last time this happened, it took me about 2 weeks for that to kind of fade, and just like meeting that with compassion was helpful. But the thing now that's sticking with me, now that I've kind of cut that contact for good, is this feeling of failure. Like, even though the morning after, just overflow of relief, and like the wisdom came in to know like this was the right decision, there's still this feeling of like there was nothing I could do to communicate in a beneficial way for both parties, and no amount of listening or saying things in different ways was resolving it. So my question, if there is one, is like, how do I reconcile that feeling of like loss, even though I know that it's a beneficial thing probably for both parties at the end of the day, with this drive to become a better communicator, to become not so reactive. Like it was out of reactivity that I cut contact. But like sometimes reactivity is reality and truth and boundaries coming forth. And so it's like, how do I balance that with that feeling of loss?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, because I think the thing to look at is our expectations. If we expect that we can solve all the problems, or like always have a good ending, or be able to work with anyone, everyone, and it's never going to be this kind of outcome where you just have to walk away, then it's unrealistic. And there's going to be feelings, and there's going to be reflection. The mind is going to like stir this up, like you said. This is normal. But we have to recognize that there's only so much we can do. That the reality is we can't, no matter how skillful we are with communication, not everyone's going to understand us. Not everyone's going to be, we are not going to be able to understand everyone. Or if that's not quite the right framing for this situation. I think sometimes you can care about someone a lot, but it's not healthy to be in contact. And it's not like we can always smooth that over and fix it. It's just not always possible. And it's not our responsibility to make sure that everybody's okay. We have to really look at, what do I have unrealistic expectations for myself or for other people? Am I really just working with what I'm responsible for is my own speech, my own actions, my own thoughts, and to know that I'm never going to make that perfect. It's an imperfect world, and it's all changing processes all the time. How's that ever going to be perfect? Even if it's perfect for 10 minutes, it's not going to stay that way. Yeah. So I think sure, there's going to be feelings. There's going to be, like you said, the first word I think you mentioned is this feeling of failure. That failure concept comes from unrealistic expectations. And it's just not possible for it all to go the way we would like it to go. And it's perfectly okay to step away when things are tending in an unwholesome direction. One time, a friend of mine who was older, and at that point, I think wiser than I was, said to me, he was talking about family members. Just because you're in the same family doesn't mean you have to like this person or want to be around them. Doesn't mean that it's healthy to be around this person, and it's the same is true for friends. It's like we can love everyone, but that doesn't mean we should be around them or in contact with them. And as you mentioned, you're sort of maybe the wisdom aspect of your mind knows that this is for the best. But of course, the feelings, the emotions aren't necessarily gonna, like be in alignment with that. Because we would like it to be different. We would like for everybody to get along. We would like for everybody to be responsible for themselves in a way that we don't impinge upon other people, but it's not possible. Even at our best, we can bring up real trouble for other people. So what do? We feel the feelings and let them go.
Yeah.
That I can do. That I know is possible.
Yeah. That's what I love about being a witness, you know, like this is something we can do. No matter what comes up, we can witness it. We can be present with it. We can let our heart experience it and let it go.
Thank you so much. Ayya.
Yeah, thank you.
Really helpful.
Yes, Grace.
I was actually wondering, and I know it's 10:30, so it doesn't have to be today, but in your latest newsletter, you said that there has not been a lay sponsor who stepped up for Katina this year. And I was actually wondering, like, what does it entail to be a lay sponsor?
Okay, so well, there's the giving of robe cloth, which, you know, a couple of yards of robe cloth is sufficient or whatever, you know. There's organizing, you know, kind of getting the word out, and maybe, you know, different people through the years have taken very different approaches to organizing Katina. It's possible to do a lot of careful organizing around who's bringing what food and all that kind of stuff, or just kind of throw it all in the air and let it come down the way it comes down. We have some people who have done the offering the Katina repeatedly for years, and they have a whole checklist that they can share with you, with the person, with the group, if they'd like. And we have had a couple of people respond and ask the same question. So maybe a committee is forming, looks like. So yeah, if anybody's interested in participating in that, let us know. And is there anything else that should be added to that question?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if more people are working on it, then it's less time for like a one person. It's a little easier, but even if one person is doing like the official offering, it's still nice to have other people
Helping out with different things. People like to help out with parts of it. And it's November 15th.
Yeah.
It's going to be on November 15th because that's kind of the only day we have on the calendar for it. So
how do we sign up for the volunteer? How do we sign up?
Yeah, I think you just tell us you want to.
Just email us and we'll put you on the list.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. And Grace, you're going to be teaching this Saturday morning program next time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'll be at Spirit Rock teaching retreat. And then we'll all be back the week after.
I'm going to do a Vesak something.
And we're going to do have a Vesak celebration on the 30th. That's the last Saturday of this month. We're going to celebrate Vesak during this period. So we'll be, you know, offering reflections on the Buddha's birth, death, and awakening. And we know one person's coming in person.
We think one person's coming.
Oh, well, yeah, you never
You
know
just
for
never
sure.
know.